Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times. Today I finally have for you a brand new release that I was able to finally watch in the cinema, and you guys don't know how excited I was to finally return to a cinema room, and I'm here to talk to you guys about The Conjuring 3.
It's coffee time.
So you follow me in other social media, you probably saw that this weekend I finally was able to go back to the cinema, and I went back and did a double feature. So there were currently 2 horror movies running only, so I watched both the same day, and that is The Conjuring 3 and the next one is Spiral, which, you know, my review will be up later this week. So today we're here to talk spoiler free about The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. This is the first movie that I have seen in the cinema since September 2020, so obviously I was extremely excited about it, but I'm going to try to be as objective as possible with this review because I do know that this movie was not perfect, even though I really did enjoy it. So before we go to the spoiler-free review, if you're new here, please consider subscribing to the channel before you leave and also hit the notification bell. The Conjuring 3 is an American supernatural horror film directed by Michael Chives. The film serves as a sequel to The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2 and as the 8th installment in the Conjuring universe. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga reprise their roles as paranormal investigators and authors Ed and Lorraine Warren. James Wan and Peter Safran return to produce the film, which is based on the trial of Arnie Cheyenne Johnson. Now, unlike part 1 and 2 in this 3rd installment, we are not following a case of a haunted house, and I think that is what a lot of people didn't like about this movie, amongst other things. We are in 1981 and demonologist Ed and Lorraine Warren were documenting as well as assisting with the exorcism of an 8-year-old. Unfortunately, there is something unexpected that happens in the middle of this exorcism. Arnie invites the demon inside of himself in order to free the 8-year-old, and that will have serious consequences. The film has some good pacing, and in a way it does follow kind of the same structure that other movies did, but because we're not following a haunted house story, it felt a little bit more detached in the way that the Warrens are not helping another family. So the Warrens are basically the ones that build this whole franchise, and the relationship that they have and how good-hearted they are and how they are a family that loves to help other families and would do anything to help other people. In this case, however, we see them in a case that takes them more through a detective investigation, taking away a little bit that part of the, you know, family helping a family thing that we had in part 1 and 2. We are still, however, following a true story, and one that I personally find extremely intriguing. This is a story that is being told about a case in which for the very first time somebody accused of murder was trying to use demonical possession in order, you know, to not be convicted, and that just was so interesting to me. I had heard about the case but not really in depth, and now after watching this movie I really want to get all that information. Also, since we are not really following a haunted house story and one family in particular, it felt that the plot got a little bit messy at times, and I think that's also something that bothered some people. This is a movie that does not really take place in just one house, unlike the other 2 movies that were mostly inside of the haunted houses. So I think that for a lot of people this movie felt a little bit detached from the franchise, but honestly I don't mind that they bring something new to the table. There's other things that bothered me with this movie, but I did appreciate that they took a case that is really interesting, that is still based on a true story, but that it brought something new to the franchise instead of having just another haunted house story. Something also different from the other movies is that in this one we don't see any other case being explored or hinted towards. It's just this case alone. Now, if you're expecting a movie really based on this case at court, which is something that I feel like was kind of hinted when the movie was advertised, this is not really the case. We don't really get to see the whole, courthouse and how everything really does happen. That is just brief moments in the movie. So if you're expecting to see the whole trial of how this guy pleaded innocence due to demonical possession, that's not what you're gonna get. Even though you do see him go to trial and everything, it's like just some minutes of the whole movie. With the Conjuring movies, you already know that you're gonna get a great production, you're gonna get great cinematography, the color palette was fantastic, the acting and the casting of the actors, everybody in the movie was fantastic. So you already get all of those things kind of as a given when you're going to see a Conjuring movie. This movie, however, does have maybe a little bit too much of CGI and some cheesy moments. There's even humor thrown into the movie, which it was completely unexpected for me. I mean, I didn't particularly hate it, the moments where they kind of joked, but it caught me kind of off guard because I did not expect it from a movie like The Conjuring. And I think you can definitely tell that James Wan did not direct this movie. Now, it's not as bad when it comes to jump scares and other things as The Curse of La Llorona was. I think that in this case, in the second movie that Michael directed, is a lot better, and you can see the influence of James Wan, but you can also see that it was not done by him. What we cannot deny here is the chemistry on screen from Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga that portray Ed and Lorraine Warren, and their story is just so captivating and everybody loves them so much. And I think that's part of why I still really enjoy this movie, because we do get to see a lot of their relationship in this third installment. And I love that Vera Farmiga is looking more and more like the real Lorraine Warren. Now, when it comes to the jump scares and the horror in general, I think that this is the movie perhaps that is the least scary from the three, and I did not mind most of the scares. There are some jump scares. There are also really good scenes. I really love one particular scene in the mortuary, but the jump scares are not as obvious as in The Curse of La Llorona, where they were just basically on your face, cheap jump scares, if you may. I feel like this time some of the scares were better planned when it comes to the timing, and even though sometimes you knew it was coming, it came from a part of the screen that you did not expect it to come. So I feel like there is a good mix between jump scares and other types of scary visuals. For me, the best parts here were the exorcism parts, because I know how making an exorcism scene can be so hard to make it believable and not bring people just to laugh about it. I personally really enjoyed it, especially the first exorcism of the 8-year-old. I thought it was really believable. I absolutely loved how they presented it. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but also the performance of this kid was phenomenal. I believe he was also in the House of Haunted Hill, and he just, he delivered his lines perfectly. I love when we get child actors that are actually so good at what they're doing. It helps so much to making scenes like that believable. And that is one of the strongest suits of this franchise, is characters that are super believable, that are well developed, and that you root for, that you care about. I felt like in this movie, it doesn't matter that the pacing sometimes was off, I was still caring so much about the characters that I was engaged with the movie. I know a lot of people also complained because the type of villain that the Warrens are confronted in this movie is different from the other ones, and that's all I'm gonna tell you. I'm not gonna go into details, but honestly, I didn't mind so much to see the Warrens confronted with something different that they've never had to face before, because that presented for them a big challenge, and they had to really go out of the comfort zone to try to solve this case. And I always appreciate new things, brought to the table. One thing though that I was not such a huge fan of is that in this movie in particular, we see Lorraine using her power perhaps a little bit too much, and at some point it doesn't feel as effective, like that wow moment that we had is kind of gone, because sometimes when you show something that a character can do, or a creature, anything in a horror movie like that, if you use it too much, at some point it just loses the impact that it had at the beginning. One of the main difference from the other movies is that this felt like a more mystery thriller, like a paranormal investigation, almost police style, and honestly I didn't hate it. But I understand why it was a problem for a lot of people. And one thing that I did enjoy personally is that we got to see a lot of different scenarios. We got to see a lot of different things that the Warrens were trying to investigate. You know, they tried to get information from different people, and it was like a full-on investigation, and I'm a sucker for detective investigations. And a lot of things happened outside of the house where the first exorcism happened, whereas the other two movies mostly took place in these houses that were haunted. My critiques also would be that perhaps, you know, this movie left a couple of questions unanswered, or a couple of things that happened that I'm still wondering what's up with that. Why did we never get an explanation on this? But those are details in the movie, so I cannot really go into detail with that. But also towards the end, I felt like they went into kind of a tropey direction where you could see things coming and everything felt just like too nicely wrapped up, kind of predictable. And yeah, that was perhaps not my favorite ending, but I think it still paid off after the whole investigation and everything that Ed and Lorraine, they had to go through a lot in this movie. Honestly, the first two Conjuring movies worked so well, so I'm unsure on why they broke that kind of mold, why they decided to go into another direction. I'm not hating this kind of police detective TV show vibe that the movie had, because I loved it. And you know, I like to see something different as well sometimes with a franchise. I don't know what would have happened if they would have done exactly another haunted house story. Would that have worked better? We will never know. But you know, I don't particularly hate where the movie went, because I think this case is extremely interesting, at least for me. So if you're expecting The Conjuring 3 to be exactly like 1 and 2, I would say maybe this one is not gonna be for you, to be honest. But if you love a good mystery and you don't mind a movie that, you know, goes a little bit into another direction, but you still get some exorcism here in this movie, don't you think that you're not gonna get your exorcism, some jump scares, some scary moments, some creepy images? You're still gonna get all of that, but it just feels a little bit more like a paranormal mystery thriller investigation. So I ended up giving this movie 3.5, which is lower than I have rated Conjuring 1 and 2. However, I think that if you love, you know, the Warrens, their story, if you are in love with the characters as much as I am, I still feel like you would really enjoy it to see part 3. Now, after watching this movie, of course, the question comes up, are they gonna go forward with part 4? Is James Wan going to return to directing that one? What's gonna happen for the franchise? We don't know. I believe that the team and the actors have said that they will be willing to come for part 4, but it depends on how well part 3 is received. And I also don't know for how long can we pull on these Conjuring movies. I feel like sometimes leaving it at a good space is better than keep going and messing it up. So we shall see, but of course I would love to see Ed and Lorraine Warren come back for another case. Alright guys, I hope that you enjoyed this movie review. Let me know down below if you have watched part 3 and which one is your favorite from the 3. Let's talk about it in the comments. Thanks so much you guys for watching. Please give the video a big thumbs up for support, and I hope to see you all guys as always in the next coffee time. Bye!